You know, a lot of times when we come into worship and we do different service areas and different things in church, we can do them so often that they can lose a bit of their impact. And the reason why we do that can become a bit obscured. And so today I want to remind us, as we get ready to pray, as we get ready to worship, as we get ready to go to God in a time of learning and then fellowshipping and on into the week, that our purpose here today is to lift up God's name. When we offer our bodies, our lives as a living sacrifice, that's us singing to God. If we want to stand and hold up our hands, or maybe we want to clap our hands or put a little drum beat on the chair in front of us, or perhaps we just need to sit down and have a moment with God to say, God, life is a mess right now. And I want you to come and to move and to work, God, because I need you here. And this is the time where we proclaim that God is worthy. Last week we asked the question, if we were arrested today for being a Christian, would they have enough evidence to convict us tomorrow? Would they be able to find through our calendar, through our checkbook, through our social media posts, through our interactions, through our friendships, through our workplace, that we lived a Christian life enough to convict us? And this right here is the ultimate testimony to somebody who the answer is yes. Because they said, man, one weak spot is that we know this guy is going to serve his God. And so what these guys did is they went and they pressured Nebi. His name is Nebuchadnezzar, but Nebi sounds better. They pressured King Nebi to make a law that said for the next 30 days, it could be worse. I could have said Nubby, right? That's just sounds bad. They said, hey, you are the king of all kings. Like, you have the biggest and the baddest army, you have more money, you have more prestige, and so what we need to do is we're going to take for the next 30 days and we can only worship you, we can only pray to you, because they wanted to set a trap for Daniel. So King Nebi said, you know what, I like the idea of that. Like, I like some accolades. I get that dopamine hit when some people click like on Facebook, so I want to post that thing or talk about that thing. That works really well. And so they made this pact and they made this law, and we're about to see one habit that changed not only Daniel's life, but the life of everybody around him. Watch this. In verse 10 of chapter 6 in Daniel. Now, when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room, watch this, with the window open towards Jerusalem. With the window open, he said, hey, you can only pray to the king. And so Daniel goes home first thing, and with the window open towards his homeland, 3 times a day, he got down on his knees and he prayed, giving thanks to God, look, just as he had done before. 3 times a day, Daniel went home and opened his windows and spent time with God, praying to him, talking with him, building a relationship with him. Even after this decree, you ever think about that? How easy it would have been for him to just shut the window. Let's just turn the shutters down, put a little curtain. But 3 times a day, he went home in the middle of a decree, said, I'm going to be with God. Just like he did every single day. And if you don't know the rest of the story, I'm going to paraphrase it. But these men who were plotting against Daniel, who knew that his only weakness was that he was unwilling to bend from his God, went to King Nebuchadnezzar and said, hey, this guy named Daniel that nobody likes, he's still praying to a God besides you? And King Nebuchadnezzar really liked Daniel because he was a high performer. He had interpreted some dreams and had done some really awesome things that had left big impressions with King Nebi. And so he unfortunately was sad, but he sent Daniel to the lion's den. And so they put him in this lion's den, and something really awesome happens. They roll this stone over it, which sounds really familiar when you think about it, right? And all night, King Nebi was worried about Daniel. And first thing in the morning, he got up and he went to the tomb, and he had the stone rolled away, and he called into the tomb. And he said, Daniel, are you still alive? And Daniel said, my God has delivered me. You see, through this, we find that one small habit changed the course of not only Daniel's life, but all of them around them. Because we can't say for sure exactly what praying 3 times a day did. But we can speculate. We can speculate that by spending time in God's presence 3 times a day, it gave Daniel boldness to live out his life in an area that was unfamiliar to him. We can speculate that by praying 3 times a day to God, that it gave him consistency and faith in the Lord, that no matter what happened in that den, that God would have his back, even if the worst happened, that he was in store for something better. You see, one small habit changed the way he viewed. And so for us today, the question is, how do we develop that habit? How do we enact this spiritual transformation in our lives? And so the first 2 things is we have to talk about making them easy and making them obvious. So the first one is this, making it obvious. And there are people that talk about the different process of decision making and what causes change and how to create habits. And we have a slide up here that's going to talk about it. But what you see generally is the cue that starts. There's something that I see in my life that creates a craving. For me, it's driving by Sushi Kingdom in the High Point. I see Sushi Kingdom and I think I want a tuna roll. And so my car automatically drives off-road up the ramp and into the parking lot to park to get me a tuna roll. So I see a queue, I have a craving, and then I've got an inborn response, something that I've done so many times that it just becomes a natural habit in my life. And then I get the reward for that. So there's this hit of dopamine. Either I get to click, or somebody sends a like, or I get the sushi roll, or whatever that looks like in your life. And so what we have to do in our process is recognize the cue, what the craving is, and then intentionally change our response. And so the first step to that is making these habits and these cues obvious. So, for example, if I want to read my Bible every day, I shouldn't keep my Bible in a drawer. Maybe I put it out on the counter next to my cereal bowl. If I want to praise God every day, maybe I want to have worship music, maybe I don't put that playlist down at the bottom of my iPhone or my iPad, but I put it at the top. I make it obvious. Maybe I want to work out or eat better because I need to treat the temple God has given me with health. Perhaps I create a habit where before I eat breakfast, I do 5 push-ups. I make it an obvious thing so that I'm constantly reminded about that. We talked about this a couple weeks ago when we looked at our spiritual identity, that we write it, we proclaim it, and we place it in spots that are constantly in front of us, so that throughout the day, whether it's on my mirror, or it's in my car, or it's on my fridge, or it's in my sock drawer, whatever that is, I'm constantly being reminded of the identity that God has for me. It's the same with this. If I want to create a habit, I have to make it obvious. The second thing that we have to do is make it easy. Make it easy. How many of you guys have things you want to change in your life? How many of those things seem overwhelming? Right? Like you get up in the middle of the day. I don't know if you guys ever had a day like this, but I got up the other day and I had a to-do list of about 47 items. And I worked all day long until I was so tired I could keep my eyes open. And when I looked at my to-do list, I hadn't done a single thing on it. You ever had a day like that where you do all the things except the things you're supposed to do? And no matter how hard you work, no matter how big it is, it's just so overwhelming, and it can stymie your progress in such profound ways. You see, to make godly habits, small, consistent, holy habits, we have to first make it obvious, and the second thing we have to do is make it easy. Guys, we're not saying that you should make a habit of running a triathlon and make the goal for this Friday. No matter how hard you train this week, that's not going to happen. What we need is to make obvious, easy habits. There's a book out called Atomic Habits, and inside that, it talks about the idea that when I'm creating a new habit, I need to have a 2-minute rule. And so anything that's new needs to be done in 2 minutes or less on a consistent basis to make sure it's done, because that's something that you can check off, and then you can use a method called habit stacking, right? So let's say I get up in the morning, and this is something I've been doing for the last 2 months, and you can ask anybody who interacts with me in the morning. I am a huge snooze button lover. I love my snooze button. It makes me happy. What makes me sad is I decided about 3 months ago that I was no longer going to use the snooze button. I miss it. Y'all pray for me. And so in the morning, my first habit that I did was that I only hit the snooze button once. The second habit that I did is I start off my day with prayer. First the snooze, and I got that down. Then every day starts off with prayer. And then the third habit that I added to that was on my way to work, every day I made it a worship experience. Maybe it's 2 songs, maybe it's 5 songs, maybe it's 20 songs, whatever that is. But little tiny habits that I can stack one on top of the other. I make them obvious, and then we make them easy, and then we build on those habits. A lot of times that looks like I will do X after I do X. I will read my Bible after I get up in the morning, or I will go to work out after I eat dinner, or I will do my devotion after I start lunch. And then we build those habits into our lives, into everything we do. And so this morning, as we leave, I want to leave us with this thought. Hope is good, but on its own, it does not change your life. Look at what it says in 1 Timothy 4:8. It says, physical training is good, but training for godliness is much better, promising benefits in this life and in the life to come. Guys, if you want to have a new life, you have to approach it that I am training myself for that. I'm building this life. I'm building these habits so that I can grow closer to God. It's not just something that happens. It's something that we have to intentionally seek to move forward. We intentionally create habits. And so as Gabby and the band get ready to come up and play our song of invitation, what I want to do is I want to close with this challenge. Last week, we started off this whole series with the challenge to read our Bible for 7 days in a row. And we did a Bible reading plan called The Power to Change as a whole church. Last week, we talked about making a change in our lives. Making something small but meaningful that we do that's different. Not to walk out of here the same way that we walked in. This week, what I want to do is challenge you every day to take 5 to 10 minutes to commune with God. Maybe that's in the morning, maybe it's in the evening, perhaps it's during lunch or one of your snacks, whatever that looks like. Create a habit this week for just a couple minutes to spend time in the presence of God. And guys, that's not where you want to end up. We don't want the only time in our life that we spend with God to be 2 to 4 minutes every day. But man, it's a great place to start and to stack habits one on top of the other as we seek to have a spiritual transformation in our life.